just gonna give a quick warning for this video before we start. I am doing some little book reviews. I try not to spoil as much as I can, but there are going to be some spoilers in really any of my book videos where I'm reviewing books. Some will be more detailed than others. This isn't overly detailed, it's more just what you would get from reading the back, but there is a little more detail than what you would get from reading the blurb. So if you're someone that really likes to go on blind with your books, maybe don't watch this video. But if you're someone who likes to hear someone else talk about what they thought of the book and like a little bit of information on the book, then you can keep watching. Yeah, this is like my little warning at the start of the video, just being like, it's not the end of the Europe trip. There is more Europe trip to come, but it's just because this had a certain timing thing with being the end of January and the start of February tomorrow. So the first book that I read this year was If We Were Perfect by Anna Huang. I will admit, I started this book last year and then I went away on a holiday. I went away on my Europe trip and then I came back and finished the book. So for me, being away for an entire month not reading this book, I ended up losing where I was and not fully understanding what was going on in my book. But pretty much the idea of the book is that Olivia, who we know from other books of the series, she has got a job in, I think it's San Francisco. I can't tell. I think it's in San Francisco. And her ex, who we also know from the first book of the series, his name's Sam, isn't he? Semi. He lives there and they end up reconnecting and going through a whole bunch of drama again, bringing up the old drama from when they were in college from the first book and what happened between them, which we didn't fully get to see in the first book. And pretty much like her apartment got flooded, so she ended up living with him for a lot of the book. And so it's how they both kind of are not necessarily enemies, but they don't particularly like each other because they both have grudges on what happened years ago, and they end up having to get together and apologize and actually move through this problem. I really like this because I think in the first book I was very confused as to why they end up calling the relationship off, and it was nice to kind of really see that reasoning come through, and it wasn't just like a random decision that Anne made writing it, that she was just going to break these characters up. She actually had a full plan for it. So I think, if I remember, I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 just because I was really confused when I came back. I was already like halfway through the book when I left for Europe, and then I had like read the rest of it when I got back. I did have the book while I was in Europe, but because we were doing so much, I didn't have time to read it. I could have read it on the plane, but I'm not very good at reading on planes. I don't know what it is. Also, I'm just noticing this. I actually love how the books look behind me. I was like trying to find like a good spot to sit and film this because it's also like really late and I'm like, I want half decent lighting and I just want to sit down and just do it. And the books actually work perfectly because I have like drawers going all the way to the floor, so it starts all the way up and goes all the way down. So it's just nice to have it all kind of here. Anyway, the second book that I read this month was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Gabler, I think is how you say her last name. I ate this book up, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure if it was a 10 out, it was definitely a 5-star read, but I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 because there were definitely like some points where I was just like, but I read this in 3 days. And I think that in itself is just a problem. It is about a girl called Evelyn, and she believes in magic because her dad did, her mum did, and she is like recently an orphan. I think her mum died years ago and her dad died recently. And in the story, she starts off with a boyfriend called Luke, and Luke is now engaged to her stepsister. And so she believes that Luke's been cursed. So she goes to Jack, I think it's, hold on, trying to figure out if they, okay. She goes to Jax, who's the Prince of Hearts. I was trying to figure out what they actually called him in this book because they call him something different in the later books. And pretty much just asks him to like fix this curse because she believes that Luke has been cursed and that's why he's getting married to her stepsister. And in doing so, she has to give him something. So he wanted her to kiss 3 people of his choosing, which means that until she completes that deal, he's going to keep bugging her pretty much. until she does what he needs her to. And then she ends up getting just sucked into this like magical world where the things that she kind of believed were fairy tales are actually very real. And honestly, it is an amazing book. Also, the plot twists, there was sometimes where I was like trying to guess what was going to happen next. So I kind of like to do that in books where I like take a little guess and think that I know what's going on, and they will throw something else out. I absolutely love when they do that, where like a character's not really what you think they are. Like you'll trust this character so much or really not trust them, and then all of a sudden everything's switched and it's just like now you have to trust them or now you really don't trust them. Yeah, it's a really good book. The next book is The Ballad of Never After, which is the second book of the trilogy. I am yet to read the third book. I literally finished this yesterday in one day. I read this book in one day yesterday. So I haven't had time to start A Curse of True Love, so I actually don't know how the book ends. So please do not spoil anything for me. This book is a 10 out of 10. I ate this book up. I'm not even lying. I couldn't stop reading it. Even when I was like trying to just like stop and just watch YouTube or get ready. I was at Ariel last night reading this in between every single break. No, during every single break. Every single break I was reading this book. That is how obsessed I was. Did I cry? I might have. I might have cried. It takes place, I think like 2 days after the ending of this book. So it's not a long time in between them, which honestly I enjoy because then you don't miss out on a whole lot. But I can't really tell you too much about this book because it is just pretty much the same thing that this book is. The only difference is 2 days later, and obviously you've got the character development. There is people saying that you have to read Caraval before you read this series. I'm gonna be honest, I started Caraval, I read Caraval, I started Legendary, and I DNF'd it because I just couldn't. I didn't know why. I don't fully remember why I didn't like it, but I just I couldn't read them. And I don't DNF books easily. Like if I DNF a book, it is a bad book. So I don't know. For me, when I was told that you kind of had to read Caraval before you read these books, I did go back and kind of read the endings of the books to try and figure out what's going on. They do mention Donatella from Caraval, and Donatella's like the main character. They do mention her in this book, but she's not, at least as far as I'm aware, she's not an overly big character. She does push some of the decisions the character makes, but you only really have one actual scene with her, at least in the first book. You don't see her at all in the second book. She does affect decisions made, and like a main part of the book is about her. But I think even DNFing Caraval, I still really, really enjoyed this book. So I really don't think it's necessary to read the entire series, especially if you don't want to and you just want to read this. Because for me, Caraval was less, like this is very romantic-y with a lot of romance. Caraval was romantic-y with a lot of fantasy. So it depends on what side of romantic-y you're kind of on. For me, the romance side is more what I enjoy. I come for the plot and I stay for the characters. And if characters do not have a good relationship with each other and I'm not getting that like cute romance that I'm living for, I usually don't fully enjoy it. Or like cute friendships. For me, Caraval was like very fantasy and I was always getting really lost in what Caraval was because I just couldn't keep up with everything going on. I had no clue where the characters were. I had no clue what things were anymore, and I was just so lost and confused that I just had to DNF it because I didn't want to like reread it to figure out where I was. Now, as for February, my first read of February is obviously A Curse of True Love. I'm one of those people where I can't not read an entire series in a go. Like Onyx Storm, right? I would love to read Onyx Storm. I have Fourth Wing and I have Iron Flame and I've read them both. But for me, if I was going to read Onyx Storm, I'll have to reread those two books. And I just can't be bothered. So I'm very much a person where I can't start a book in the middle of a series. So obviously I'm going to have to finish this book first. And I'm really excited. I'm going to probably start tonight. I'll probably be editing videos, so I probably won't. But tonight or tomorrow, I will definitely start this book and probably finish it by Sunday because I've got nothing planned for Sunday. So I'm going to eat this book up on Sunday. I have been told by someone that they also sobbed crying over this book. Really hoping that's me because I actually love crying over books because it shows that I'm really connected to the characters. So after I finish A Curse for True Love, I'm going to read The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose and the Dagger. by Renee. I actually don't know how to say her last name. But these books are, I think this one's about 10 years old. I don't know how, might be like 9 or 8 years old. So I'm a little bit behind. This is 8 years old. So these are probably some of the older books on my shelves. I think I've probably had them a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years now. It's been a while. And I always feel so bad because every time I reorganize my bookshelf, I see them and I don't even know what they're about. I just know that at some point I read the blurb, I liked it, I bought it. And now I don't know what to do because I have very little motivation to actually read these books. But I also feel really bad because they're just sitting on my shelf, not being read. So I reckon I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to read the books. And I'm hoping that I can find that I enjoy them. But I have faith. I have a feeling that I actually enjoy them because they seem like a vibe. But they're definitely fantasy, but I couldn't even tell you what they were about. I genuinely can't even sit here and pretend that I know. I got nothing for you. I'm gonna be honest. Got nothing to say about these books because I've got no clue what they're on. And this last one is probably going to be March as well because it's a series. I'm going to start reading Crave by Tracy Wolff. And then let me pick them up, they're heavy. The entire series that comes with it. It is there's 6 books here. It's a 6-book series. I personally call it the C series. I don't know what it's actually meant to be called as a series, but I call it the C series because every single title has C at the start. So it makes sense for me. Fun fact, when I actually bought this series, I bought this book first because I thought this was the first book of the series until I discovered that this was the first book of the series. The last 3 I couldn't find for the longest time. So Crush and Crave have probably been on my shelves for a year now. But again, I can't start a series unless I have the entire series because first of all, it would pressure me to read the entire series, but also then with how quickly I can go through books. I mean, I've read these 2 in 4 days. Like if I didn't have the 3rd book of that series, I wouldn't be able to read anything until I got the 3rd book because otherwise I'd have to reread the series. But this is like it's a vampire romance. Which honestly I'm super excited for because I actually don't mind vampires and stories. You kind of guess it's a vampire book from just like the cover because you can just see the blood. But I feel like this is going to kind of go and look a little more of a darker romance way, which I'm excited for because I actually don't mind dark romance. I've been looking for an excuse to read some. So this is like the perfect excuse. But because it is a 6-book series, unless I go through the books really quickly, it's almost impossible for me to go through all these books in February. So this is definitely going to be in my little February wrap up, my March start. Because I have a strong feeling that these 2 books are going to have me for a while because I'm going to have to force myself to even start it. And then if I don't enjoy it, I'm going to have to really force myself to read it because I don't like DNFing books. I always feel really bad because very little of the time is it books that I bought for myself. It's more books that people buy for me. So I'm always like, I want to finish the book so that like their money doesn't go to waste. So I always try and finish my books. But honestly, I'm actually really excited for this series. I think it's gonna be good. I have good feelings about it. The thing that I'm scared about is that the books, some of them are quite thick. I don't know how many pages most of these are. That's about 600. I think Crush or Covert are probably the longest. So that's about 700. And that's also about 700. So I think it's like a max of 700 pages. But yeah, this is definitely not going to be finished in March. It is definitely going to be it's definitely not going to be finished in February. It's definitely going to be a March read as well. Because there is no way I'm reading 9 books in February. I reckon I'll probably get up to Covert. And then the last 3 will be March. But I'm going to make a start on the series, which is the important thing. So that brings us to the end of the video. I'm going to try to do more book stuff because I actually really enjoy just like yapping about books. So I don't know really how I'm going to do it. I don't know if I will do more book recommendations. I don't know if I will do like reviews on like, you know, when I finish this book, I will review it and talk about what I thought of it. I don't know if I will do like series reviews. I'll come up with something eventually. I'll get ideas. I'll just watch some YouTube videos and get some inspiration from what other people do, because that's how it all works. But if people have suggestions, please comment them, because I need some suggestions, because I love doing it, but I just don't know what people will watch. But I also don't know what I would then go back and watch. Because personally for me, like, I don't think I'd go back and watch this video unless I'm seeing what I completed in February. But I do think it would be nice to kind of like, when I finish, especially like a long series, talking about it, or just like talking about books that I liked and I didn't like. I think I'll definitely do one of those books where it's like if I think the book series is worth the hype or not, because I can definitely think of a few books that people hyped up that I was actually really disappointed by. But those are gonna get very, I think people are gonna be mad at me if I do them. But I do just want to give a reminder that all my book recommendations and all my reviews are all my opinions. But thank you all for watching. I actually have lots of fun just talking about books. It's actually a lot of fun, and just sitting on the floor doing it. I think I really like the setup as well. For like it being such a last minute decision, I actually really enjoyed the setup. But thank you all for watching. Bye bye.